This episode of A Conversation with John Conenna is sponsored by Generate. In today's digital age, staying ahead means harnessing the power of generative AI. Wondering how your small or medium-sized business can join this revolution? Look no further than Generate, your strategic partner for integrating cutting-edge generative AI solutions. We create personalized plans, adapting existing AI technologies to fit your specific business needs. Plus, our expert team provides essential training, empowering you to make the most of these innovative technologies. Interested in transforming your business with AI? Reach out to us at generateteam@gmail.com. That's generate, GENERAIT, team@gmail.com. And now, on with the episode.
Good evening and welcome to another edition of A Conversation with John Conenna. Tonight, it's a big thrill for me. Tonight, we bring on the former NHL player from the Philadelphia Flyers, Pittsburgh Penguins, Los Angeles Kings, and the Buffalo Sabres. A gentleman who used to come into the Chicago Stadium, and I used to get intimidated just knowing that they were coming to Chicago back in the early 70s. And we are talking about Dave Schultz. Dave, thank you so much for coming on. This has been long awaited for me, and was a thrill when you answered to me and said yes. How you doing, young man?
All right. My pleasure. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is great. Dave, I got to ask you, just for starters, because, I played on the amateur level and I coached at the amateur level here in Illinois. When do you get that early passion where you say, you know what, I'm going to do this? I know you're born in Waldheim, Saskatchewan, but you really grew up in, Rosetown, right?
Well, we moved from Waldheim. That's where I was born. I lived on a farm for first 8 years of my life, and then we moved back to Waldheim.
Oh wow!
I never, when I was 9 years old, 8 or 9, and then we moved to Rosetown when I was 12, grade 6. So and then my parents, lived in Rosetown the rest of their lives, except my mother, when my dad died, my mother moved to Saskatoon, where I had 2 sisters, and I now have 1 sister there.
Oh wow! So you started playing this at a young age, the hockey, correct?
Yeah. When we moved back to Waldheim at age 8 or 9, I was in grade 3. That's when I started. When they had an outdoor rink, not just natural ice, obviously, and we in small towns in Saskatchewan, as you well know. You play hockey. Most kids do. Yeah. So that's what I did. I had an older brother, who was a little bit bigger than me, but he passed at age 46. But when he was actually living here in the Philadelphia area, he played some minor league hockey, and won a few championships in the Eastern Hockey League with Syracuse, and I think he was with the team when they won in Philadelphia Firebirds also. Wow. So he was a pretty good player, but never made the National Hockey League.
Right. And this was your older brother? Can you hear me?
Yes, my older brother, yes.
Yeah, older brother, sorry. So when do you get actually noticed when you're coming out of where? Because I know you start playing with the Swift team, the Broncos, was it?
Yeah, that's when I got noticed. Actually, there's scouts all over the Western, in Ontario and in the East too, all over Canada. Right. And someone that had saw me play, minor league, youth hockey, and I got invited to the Estevan Bruins training camp. And they had a powerhouse. So right at that point, the Western Canada Hockey League was outlawed by the CAHA.
Oh,
I shouldn't say that. That was a year or 2 later. My point is that every team in the Western Canada Hockey League was to make a junior A team. And Estevan Bruins Scotty Monroe. If I remember, he was very famous for his junior hockey with Estevan Bruins, and they're the only team that made a made a junior A team. So we were all cuts from the Swift Current from the Estevan Bruins. We went to the Swift Current Broncos, and that's when we formed that team. And we played exhibition games the first year, and again then the second year we got a franchise in the league.
Wow. So okay. So yeah. So
that's how it went, and I got.
There's a lot of scouts then looking at you at that time too, right?
Yeah, and the next, for those 3 years, that I played junior, particularly, my second year was a full year in the Western Canada Hockey League, scored 30 some goals, and then my last year of junior, because that's when they were outlawed by the CAHA, because the Western Canada League wanted overage players.
Gotcha.
And therefore, I did not need a branch-to-branch transfer to go to the Quebec Junior League. Oh. And that's where I went. Me and 4 other Western Canadian guys went there. We ended up with the Sorel Blackhawks, had a hell of a hockey club. In fact, we went to the finals in the East for the Memorial Cup. Montreal Junior Canadiens, who had an absolute powerhouse, they actually beat us, and then they went on to win the Memorial Cup against Regina.
Well, and of course, these teams are always this is the best of the best back, especially in those days. That was the best of the best.
Yep. Yeah. So I was getting noticed. I would playing in Sorel, but even Swift Current, there was scouts out in the Western Canada League. But yeah, and then I got drafted by the Philadelphia Flyers in 1969.
Yeah, and then I mean, knowing this, you saw the progression with this. I mean, from the beginning to this, what you just told me about the Memorial Cup. So, I mean, they're knocking on the door little by little. They're seeing what a Dave Schultz could do, correct?
I never had a fight.
Yeah, no. And I'm talking about, you were a scorer, not a fighter.
I was.
Yeah,
I scored my last year junior. I scored 50 goals. And that includes, I had 15 in Swift Current, another 15 it was Sorel during the regular season, and then another 20 in playoffs.
Right.
We played anyway. So yeah, I was a goal scorer. I wasn't drafted because I could fight, because I never had a fight.
That was never the thing about you. Yeah, things change, of course, when you get to Philadelphia a little bit, when you get into their system, correct? Because I remember reading this story many years ago. The St. Louis Blues, of course, were a team that was always doing a lot of physicality, just like we're the Boston Bruins, and teams are trying to build up to that style, correct?
Yeah, I mean, well, you get, anybody can get intimidated.
Sure.
And, when you have a few tough guys on your team, you can easily intimidate the other team. And but what happened to me, my whole life changed really when I got drafted by the Flyers, and the training camp was in Quebec City, and Keith Allen, the general manager, said they wanted to keep few older players with the Quebec Aces, who was their American League team. And he said, Dave, we'd like you to go to Salem, Virginia. Salem, Roanoke, Virginia Rebels. And, they knew the guy that was coaching there. And so that's where I went. And for some reason, pardon me?
No, I said you went right there. No, I was repeating what you were saying.
I went there, yes, and I don't know what happened to me. Something did. I started fighting,
right?
And I was doing really good at it. So I collected about 350 PIMs that year, and I scored 32 goals, I think. And then the next year, I made the American Hockey League Quebec Aces. Yes. But I continued to kind of be the enforcer, and not just myself all the time, but I started doing a lot of fighting. And
I mean, you're 6'1", you always had that intimidating look about you. And, and these scouts know you can handle yourself on the ice. It's not like you're, some little guy dazzling around. You could play, you could score, you can, I remember hear a story in Chicago about Eddie Olczyk. Eddie was this guy that you just really couldn't move around that well. And again, he gets noticed. So again, I'm sure they saw a lot in you as the scorer and being this guy who, was not going to be bullied around. You come up
in the American League. What's that?
You come up for a cup of coffee in 71, 72 with the Flyers, one game.
One game. It was
One
during
game.
during the season. It was during the season, and it was against Chicago. In fact, I'll never forget it because I played against Bobby Hull. That's the only time I ever played against him because
he was still in the Hawks.
He went to the WHA, and so in fact, I think I was -1, and plus I think Bobby Hull scored, I think, on us. Anyway, the bottom line is that's all I got. I was going to come up at the end of that season for the playoffs, but that was the game when I forget the player, Jerry Meehan, I think, took a shot from about the center line, and Favell let it in, and the Flyers did not make the playoffs.
Oh wow, okay, so, I remember that. Yeah, Doug Favell was the goalie then. Yes, Doug Favell. Yeah. But in 72, 73, now I was into that era big time. In 72, 73, you're on that team now. You're playing a full schedule. You guys now start to make the move of what I call now you're going to dominate after that year, the next 2 years. And here's my question of this podcast, because you almost kind of got to it before I did. You had Doug Favell. A lot of people say that if the biggest change, a lot of people say the biggest change besides you and everybody else, the Clarks, the Cowboy Flets, the Ross Lonsberries, everybody else, the biggest change was Bernard Marcel Parent. Am I correct in saying that the next year in 73, 74?
Yeah, well, he was with Toronto Maple Leafs in 72, 73.
Right.
So Favell and Bobby Taylor were our goaltenders. And that was the year we actually won our first playoff series against the Minnesota North Stars regarding, an expansion team. And it was the next year that Keith Allen traded for Bernie Parent, got him back. And again, Clarkey was there. He'd been there for 3 years already.
You're ready since 69, 70.
Yeah. I did.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. He was there with
me, and Don Selesky, and then they traded for DuPont, Andre DuPont that season. And we started to have a better hockey club. And that's when Bill Flett was played with Billy Barber. And it wasn't until that next season when they traded Bill Flett, and they got Lonsberry, and I'm trying to
Reggie Leach,
a couple other guys.
Yeah, they got Leach. They got Reggie Leach that year.
No, Reggie Leach didn't.
The Reggie Leach came in 75. Reggie came in 74, 75.
Yeah, the second year we won the Stanley Cup in 74.
Yeah, and 73, 74, and then 74, 75. Yeah, exactly.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But let's go back to that first Stanley Cup year, Dave. You guys make this progression, and it's really off that last playoff series in 72, 73. Did you guys, was there a big, what besides Parent and all the players you mentioned yourself, Selesky, Clark, all these guys, now you guys become this hungry team of the original expansion, and you guys, you opened up the word tonight, intimidating. Not only did you have to play the Flyers at a game of hockey, but it was an intimidating game, and you had to be ready night in and night out, correct?
Well, you're allowed to body check in hockey.
Yeah,
right. Of course, not now anymore.
No, now nobody gets hit. No.
The key was, you mentioned it earlier, St. Louis Blues. They had a bunch of guys that wanted to intimidate you. In fact, Ed Snyder said, and there was a game right at the end of that season 71, 72, that they had a brawl with the St. Louis Blues, and Picard came from behind and knocked one of the players out. He never played again. And Ed Snyder says, we might not be able to come up with all the big goal scorers as an expansion team, but we can certainly find guys to beat other guys up if that's what was needed. I do not want to see a team get intimidated ever again. Sure. And it didn't.
No.
I wasn't the only one. DuPont did some fighting, and Kelly did it quite a bit. And we had a big, tough team. And when again, in those days, you run a guy, somebody has to respond.
Exactly.
And we did.
Exactly.
And then everybody cried. Oh, poor Toronto, and like, who cares? Right. Play the game.
That was Dave. That was the style of the game back then, and you guys did it successfully, and you weren't going to be bullied around. The whole season was, you saw this progression, you saw this coming on. And then when you guys got to the playoffs, of course, you open up against Atlanta. I'll never forget, you scored the winner against Atlanta in that series. You guys swept them. And, and then the following series is a series I will never forget. It's against the New York Rangers, a solid veteran team with Jean Rattel, Vic Hadfield, Rod Gilbert.
They had a great team.
Eddie Giacomin in goal. I mean, but that is a game that lays in my head forever, because Dave, I really felt that not that it was going to be a walk in the park for them. They were already thinking Boston Bruins. They had to fight you guys, and you guys outfought them.
I actually think that if they would have got past us, they'd have beat Boston.
Oh yeah.
Because they had a great team. They had a very good team. And, I don't know maybe the difference was Bernie Perrant.
Yes.
Because, we went 7 games.
Sure.
So, sure. We had home ice advantage
in that series.
And anyway, so we won the 7th game at home.
Right. It was a great series.
Yeah.
Of course, I will never forget when you talk about intimidating and you talk about one-on-one is when you had the fight with Dale Rolfe. And I think that was in the game 7, correct?
Yeah.
Do I remember that? That
was in game 7. I think towards the end of the first period. I mean, Dale Rolfe, I shouldn't have been fighting him, but he dropped his gloves.
Right.
I've watched the video a few times. I mean, I don't know why he did. Yeah. I mean, I guess it was, he wasn't a fighter. He was a very good defenseman. And sure. Anyway, so that's what happened. Yeah, and we won the game 7, 4-3. So it was a great series.
Oh, incredible!
Again, then we went on to.
Yeah, play the Bruins. I got to tell you, legend and lore says that in game 2, when you guys played the Bruins in that first Stanley Cup run, it went to over. Game 1, you guys lost in the last minute or beat Perrant from the point. I think Bernie was screened. You guys probably should have won game 1 in Boston. That's how close that game was. It was a 2-1 decision, and it was just at the end of the third period. Bobby Orr scored. But game 2 is the game where I think somebody tells Shiro from the stands, put Schultz out there.
Yeah.
And he did. And
I hadn't been on the ice the last half of the third period.
Right.
And it was halfway into overtime. And I hadn't seen the ice. And Freddie said, Schultz, Flett, and Clark. And I went in the corner, and luckily I got the puck from O'Reilly and I shoved it out to Bill Flett, and he put it to Clarkey in front of the net, and Clarkey scored. It was. We don't win that game. I'm not sure we'd have won that Stanley Cup.
Yeah, but that was a great.
We certainly, if we would have had to go back to Boston, we beat Boston in game 6, 1-0 with
Right.
McLeish scoring. And I don't know if it'd have been a tough, because we lost game 5, 5-1 in Boston.
Yes, in Boston. In Boston.
Okay, so I had a couple films.
Yeah, oh yeah, no, in Boston. I remember that game, and yeah, you had to win that game. I remember Snyder brought back Kate Smith for the national anthem. You couldn't hear anything in there except Kate. And two things about that game I remember. McLeish's goal, I think he tipped it against Gilbert early.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you remember this, with about 9 minutes left in that game, Kenny Hodge is coming up the right side, and he lets go of a cannon on Bernie.
Yes.
And Bernie sticks out his toe and makes maybe one of the greatest saves in playoff history.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was.
Bernie played well.
He was incredible.
Yeah, he was a key to.
But again, let's go back to your role, because we got into the playoffs. I mean, but again, I was just saying before I set up this interview today to myself, you guys not only had to be this hockey team, but you were this intimidating team. You knew everybody on that team, I felt, and of course, you were the head guy there. You knew your role, right? I mean, of course, Cheryl being an ex-boxer, wanted to see you guys fight. Is that correct?
I heard him on an interview say, the question was, why did you let those players fight? And he says, well, they like to fight, so I let them. But Fred Shero, the Fog, liked a tough team.
Yes,
there's no question about that. He was that way. He had those tough teams in the Central Hockey League with Omaha and wherever else he coached. And I know for a fact, I think that if it wasn't for Fred Shero, I would not have been allowed with some of these other coaches to do the fighting that I did.
Right.
I love Freddie Shero. He was a good man, a good coach.
Yeah.
And he was a key to our win too.
Dave, going back to Freddie for a minute here, was he big on X's and O's, or was he more of the guy to let you play the game?
No, he was X's and O's. I mean,
yeah.
let me put it this way. Again, the game was evolving, and they got much more X's and O's after I was gone, but we practiced coming out of our end zone every practice for at least half an hour to 45 minutes every day for 4 years. We were good at coming out of our end zone.
Right.
And and again, we didn't have a Bobby Orr on our team. We had Ed Van Imp.
Right.
Who in his own right, I love the guy, great player, but it certainly wasn't no Bobby Orr.
Yeah.
And we didn't. Tommy Bladen was probably our most
versatile
mind.
Yeah, versatile guy. Or even Watson was a versatile guy too.
Jimmy Watson.
Jimmy Watson, correct.
Again, Joe played.
Yeah, they were probably the closest thing.
So
talking about that Bruins series, because I'm sure too they knew that maybe they thought they had the edge on you guys. A lot of trash talking in that series.
They did. A
lot of trash. I mean, can you remember some stories that you could maybe want to elaborate from that first Stanley Cup?
What kind of stories?
Well, kind of stories. I want to know, like, when you were lining up on the draw against Hodge or Cashman, what was going on?
I didn't say nothing. That wasn't my thing. Was to keep my mouth shut.
Right.
And the first thing a player like that would see is my fist coming at his face.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. I would never say to you want to go.
Yeah.
Anyway. Right. I'm not sure if I can think of any stories right now. Terry O'Reilly was my main nemesis. Geez. I mean, I fought him 9 times in my career. Actually, the first time he was with the Boston Braves, and we were both in the American League. And but yeah, he was a tough guy. We got to know each other a little after we retired. It's good, we went at it many times.
For sure.
And
do you still talk? Do you talk to O'Reilly now?
Yeah. If I,
Yeah,
I don't see him very often, but
right.
actually, we're coming up. It's the 50th anniversary. Okay, May 19th, 1974.
Of that game
coming up.
Right.
And we're having a game on January the 25th. I'm sorry, 26th. They're bringing in all the living guys from the Stanley Cup teams, and and we're playing we're having a game against the Flyers alumni versus the Boston Bruins alumni, and I'm not playing. I mean, one guy might play, Joe Watson, which he wouldn't play. He'd only play one shift. He's 80 years old. Anyway, but they're bringing in all the guys. It's going to be a wonderful weekend because the next day on the 27th, the Flyers play the Boston Bruins.
Boston,
and they're inducting Mark Recchi into the Flyers Hall of Fame.
He's in there.
That 1 o'clock game. Anyway,
that is fantastic. I want to jump ahead to season 2 of the great 2 Stanley Cups. Yeah, of course, the 74-75. Of course, you guys again are having a great season, and you wind up playing. Jumping ahead a little bit here in the series, you wind up playing the Buffalo Sabres. If I had to ask you a question here tonight, which one of those 2 Stanley Cups was the tougher series?
For some reason, there's certain times in history, I guess, where some teams just have a better shot at beating the other team than otherwise.
Right.
And we could beat the Buffalo Sabres. And that was not a problem. I mean, the Boston Bruins, that was tough. And so we I think the 73-74 win against the Bruins was certainly my favorite.
Right.
And we certainly weren't expected to win, but we did. And so some people thought we got lucky against the Bruins. And so I guess it was kind of nice for us to win against the Buffalo Sabres to kind of prove. I mean, we had a hell of a hockey club. There's been no better leader in any sport, in my opinion, than Bobby Clarke. And so we had a great team, great goaltending. Nobody intimidated us, and we were Stanley Cup champs for 2 years, and could have won the third year. But a lot of people were so happy when Montreal beat us. But
and I got to ask you about that series, though. We're jumping ahead, but that's okay. I like this about this tonight. In 75-76, of course, you guys played the Canadiens. But if people remember, there was no Rick McLeish. There was no Bernie Parent, and there was no Ed Van Imp. Okay, so my question to you is:
there was no Van Imp?
No Van Imp.
Anyway, I know we didn't have Bernie Parent.
Wayne Stevenson was the goalie that year.
Correct.
Wayne Stevenson, and of course McLeish was hurt. My question, I asked Reggie Leach this when I interviewed him about a year ago. If you have those 3 guys, do you beat the Montreal Canadiens in 75-76?
Yeah. Yes, it's easy for me to say yes.
Yeah, but I want you to be honest.
We didn't have we had a great team.
Oh yeah.
So again, guess what happened right after that Montreal series?
What happened after Montreal?
I got traded.
Oh yeah, you got traded. Yeah, you go to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
No, LA Kings.
Oh, you went to the Kings before the Penguins?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and
if you were the GM, and you just got a team that won his first playoff game in expansion, wins the Stanley Cup the second year, what Stanley Cup the third year, goes to the finals the fourth year. Would you trade Dave Schultz?
No, I would not. Not after all you accomplished. And
Why
what you
did I?
did.
Why did I get traded?
That I don't know why.
Me neither.
But you know what? I know there was a player coming up. His name was Holmgren, correct?
Yes.
Holmgren was coming up. But no,
Yeah.
but Dave, I thought that was too quick. And I'm being the outsider looking in here. I thought that was too quick to kind of start to do this dismantling. Because I think some other things happened with after 75, 76.
What?
I mean, other players got traded. I don't remember names.
Oh no, not right. No, not right
Just
away.
you. So you must have done. Must have done something else.
I'd like to know the reason.
Right.
Okay. And again, between me and you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not going anywhere. No.
I think. Yeah. I think there was pressure from the National Hockey League.
Well,
Get rid of that bum.
Yeah. Well, you want to know, if you really want to watch something, look at both Stanley Cups that you win. And when Clarence Campbell, especially in Boston, especially in Philadelphia, when you won in Philadelphia against Boston.
Yeah.
Watch the face of Clarence Campbell. He had a sourpuss on his face because he wanted the Boston Bruins to beat you guys.
All we did in those years was all the teams in the league made money because the building was packed whenever we came there.
Exactly.
So anyway,
No, but I mean, and I got a great one for you, and if you'll remember this, and you did answer it in some respects. You remember the Russian tour, the Army team and the elite team that came through, and of course they were beaten up on the NHL teams pretty good. But it was nice when the NHL called you guys to say to take care of business on that Sunday afternoon. And
they did.
Eddie Van Impe hit that Russian.
Yeah.
And they wanted to call it off.
They what?
They wanted to not come back on the ice after Eddie hit him. And
wow, that was just communist, whatever.
We won't get into politics.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, that looked good on them getting beat. We outshot them 41 to 13, and beat them, outscored them 4-1. So
4-1.
Yeah.
Dave, actually, Fred Shero had studied the Russian style of play, correct? And he told you guys, stand on the blue line, just wait for him to come.
Yeah, they like to circle, and then a player goes towards one of those players, and all of a sudden they have a guy open and they're going down the ice. So,
exactly.
Yeah, we just kind of waited for him.
I wanted you to know that was the first time I wanted you guys to beat Boston for sure, because being a Chicago guy. I didn't want you guys to beat the Sabres because my idol growing up was Roger Crozier. So and of course Crozier played a real good game 6 against you guys. And then, of course, I wanted you guys to beat the Russians that Sunday. So I remember all those games like it was yesterday, and you guys did a phenomenal job. How was life after Philadelphia? I know you go to L.A., you go to Pittsburgh, you go to the Sabres. How was it for you? Because this was a team of great camaraderie. You guys were very close-knit, correct? The Flyers.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a great team and great leadership. There were 4, 5, 6 guys that were our leaders. And so it was. I think about it more now than I did. You get traded the next day. You're on an airplane to L.A. and whatever. But I'm probably more upset about the whole thing today than I am back then. I was back then. It's part of the game, I guess. But. Sure. But again, anyway, so
yeah, you move on. But I mean, again, you played on those teams. I mean, and of course, they were always probably looking for that style of player to enforce what you guys had in Philadelphia by taking a man of your experience, that they could put out there. You say like on a third line. And of course, mix it up when somebody was coming after their guy. If it was Marcel Dion or if it was Gilbert Perreault, you now were going to protect players like that, correct?
Well, yeah, but on the other hand, those they weren't Stanley Cup champions. They were struggling in the league
You're right.
uh, to play. LA had not a bad team. I mean, Marcel Dion and some pretty good players.
Yeah,
Roby
Zimmer and Taylor.
Vachon was the goalie, but I mean, Pittsburgh was not a very good team at all.
Right.
But when I went to Buffalo, we had the best team in the league that year. Should have won the Stanley Cup. We lost in a best of three to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Oh,
yeah. So, but we had that was a great team. Those were a great bunch of guys. They had a good bunch of guys and a good organization.
For sure.
Yeah.
Life after the playing, you got into a little bit of coaching, right, in the mid '80s.
Yeah, I did. I stayed out too long though. I should have just stayed with the game and got into maybe scouting some or something like that. But so by the time it was a number of years, 5 or 6 years, I guess, when I coached. It was the coach GM of the New York Slapshots. I was a bus driver. Anyway, and then I had a team called the Philadelphia Bulldogs.
Okay.
Which was roller hockey in here in Philly. We played at the Spectrum, and I met a couple players there, particularly Kent Hawley, who I think that's his name, Kent. Yeah, and he said, "Come on, coach in Madison, Wisconsin, in the the United Hockey League." And so I went there, and then ended up, then I got.
Yeah, you coached the Madison Monsters. You actually had a really good record.
Yeah, I did, and then I coached. Yeah, we had a good team, and unfortunately lost in the playoffs to Thunder Bay. But and then I went to this Baton Rouge Kingfish, and I really enjoyed my time there. But then I ended up leaving after that season and going to Utica, New York.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we had, it was an expansion team, the Lehigh Valley, not the Lehigh Valley Extreme.
Was that Elmira? Was that Elmira?
No. I made a brief stop there the next year or so, but no, it was the Mohawk Valley Prowlers.
Oh, okay, the Prowlers.
And we didn't, we were an expansion team and we were trying to struggle along. But anyway, so and then I left. Then I left the game.
And the reason being, maybe.
Well, I didn't want to keep moving around, and my marriage fell apart. No thanks to me, and I moved back to New Jersey, where I have two sons who were in college at the time.
Yes,
and. So I came back here. My brother was had a business here, and so I came back to this area, and I've been here basically ever since.
Yeah, you had collaborated on a book with Stan Fischler back in the day called "The Confessions of a Hockey Enforcer." Matter of fact, I still.
I'm writing a real book.
I still. Yeah, I heard. We're going to talk about that. The book that's going to be coming out. I want to tell our audience. And we're going to take a little bit break here, Dave. We are visiting with Dave Schultz of the Philadelphia Flyers, a former NHLer, and his book is going to be coming out next October, Hammered by Life, which is going to be a great book, and that'll be a better version, I think, than this one that I originally gotten. This was with Fisher, The Confessions of a Hockey Player. Hey, you had the nice head of hair going there like me back in the day.
Yeah.
But no, that was a great book.
Yeah.
But Hammered by Life, who's the author, Dave, for Hammered by Life?
Hammered by Life? That's me.
The author.
I'm the author.
No, you're the full-time author. You did all the writing.
No. Dan, his name is Dan Robson.
Dan Robson. Okay.
He's out of Toronto. He's written many books.
Great.
And good writer. So I'm looking forward to getting that all finalized.
Yeah, because when that book comes out, I'm going to have you on here again because we're going to promote that book heavily.
Yeah.
That is going to be a great book. I know you had told me about that a couple of months ago, The Hammered by Life. That's
Yeah.
going to be fantastic because that's the version we want to read about Dave Schultz. Dave, after the hockey and everything else, what did you wind up doing after the life of hockey? Because I mean, you've been in this game since 1964. If you go back to the year 66 with the Swiss Broncos.
Yeah. Well, I managed a hockey rink after I retired. I moved back from Buffalo to the Philadelphia area,
Okay.
this area in South Jersey, and I managed a hockey rink for 8 years, and which I enjoyed very, very much, and that's when I went off coaching, in 3 or 4 years there, and then when I came back, I was we were supposed to have a brand new rink built in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And they finally built it, but it was a couple of years later, and now that's where the Philadelphia Phantoms, or the Lehigh Valley Phantoms, I should say, but their farm team, the Flyers farm team, is an hour and a half north here in Allentown, and then I got into sales. I'm in energy sales of energy, and and I do some signings, and I do some different types of promotions. And right now, I'm actually in my, I don't know, fifth chapter of my life.
Okay, we got a lot of chapters left here, Dave.
Oh man, my last chapter. Well, I thought it was going to be my last chapter. Was to I stopped drinking. I went to AA. And it's been almost a year and a half now.
Okay.
And greatest days of my life. I mean, it's taken some adjustment, obviously, and different way of life.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm in sobriety.
Okay.
And but I thought that was my last chapter. But now my last chapter is going to be I'm going to work with the Philadelphia Flyers again.
Oh, that's fantastic. And
what
will be your capacity there, Dave?
GM? No, I'm just kidding.
GM? Wait a minute. You heard it first on this podcast.
I'm just gonna do some public relations.
Okay.
You know,
because I was going to ask you, if you get the GM job, you think I can get an assistant coach job?
Yeah. No. Danny Briere is the GM.
Yeah, Briere, great player. I got to say one thing to you. And then we're going to play a little 5-fact thing. How did it feel? Because for anybody that makes something like this, I thought this was a great honor. And I'm great to hear that you're going back to the Flyers. How was it for you to get inducted into the Flyers Hall of Fame 2009? What went through your mind? I mean, that was something. I mean, you had to be honored and proud about that.
Yes, I am very honored. Very honored. In fact, and again, I without trying to, I mean, the main reason I'm in the Flyers Hall of Fame is because of Mr. Ed Snyder.
Oh, Snyder, yeah.
He was watching me up there in those 4 years, and when I was with other teams. Anyway, when I came back to this area, he wanted me in the Flyers Hall of Fame, and that's how I was only with the Flyers 4 years, 4 seasons. Right. So it's a very a big honor, and I'm in fact on January the 27th, the Flyers are playing the Boston Bruins, and night after our alumni game.
Okay,
and Mark Recchi's getting inducted into the Flyers Hall of Fame.
Another great player.
Now, a little bit better player than I was. anyway, I'm just so grateful to be a part of the organization.
Yeah. I wanted to bring that up. I thought that was fantastic. All right. I'm going to give you 6 questions, and then I'm going to end it with a great line. So 1-word answers, couple answers, but here we'll start. First question. Who was that early mentor besides your parents that you always still remember? That early mentor when it came to the game of hockey, the early one.
Well, again, unfortunately, my father was not a mentor for me.
Okay.
He was an alcoholic.
Okay.
Nice man. I guess the first guy would be Harvey Roy, who was my first coach in junior hockey.
Oh, wow.
And he was just I don't know how he never coached long, but
Sure.
anyway, so that's the first person I ever.
That's a nice memory. Harvey Roy was that first mentor. Thank you.
Yeah.
I got to ask you a second question. Who was the most talented player you ever played with? The most talented you ever played with?
With or against?
With.
Oh boy. Wow. I'd probably have to say Marcel Dion or Joe, French Connection line.
With Gilbert and Rick and Rennie.
Yeah, I mean, Clarky was a phenomenal player, but he wasn't.
Clarky had to grind everything he did, correct?
Yes, he did. Yeah. God bless him. Yeah.
All right, so here's the third question, which you almost answered. The guy you hated to play against, night in and night out. Who's that guy you just, we got to play him again? Who was tough on you?
Well, I just have to say Terry O'Reilly, because there was so many times when I wanted to fight some smaller guy, and he would jump. I've got video of him jumping in and out around these players and dropping his gloves in front of me.
Yeah,
I didn't have any choice but to fight with him.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, those were great battles.
Yeah,
those were great battles. All right, question 4. Now I want you to listen to this carefully. Okay, David, because you can't screw this up, because I know your answer and you can't have this as your answer. The one interview you'd like to have, like I'm interviewing you tonight, the one interview that you would maybe want to do in your life. I want to interview, it could be a man, it could be a woman, you could take them out to dinner, whatever. And I know what you want to say. It can't be me. What's the one interview that you would want to interview besides me?
Oh, that I would want?
Yeah, somebody you want to interview, and it can't be me.
Wow.
Dave, you're slipping here tonight. Come on, man.
I was thinking you were going to ask me what's the last guy I'd want to interview me.
Yeah, no. The guy you would want to interview.
I don't know. There was a lot of them. A lot of people who wouldn't be too cruel to me, wouldn't try and throw me under the bus or whatever.
Yeah.
In their questioning. So I'm not sure.
Okay, we'll say you're not sure. Okay, so the next time you want to do an interview, it's just going to have to be me. You're going to have to interview.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's it. Yeah.
All right. What is the feeling for you to be a 2-time Stanley Cup champion? Just in a couple of words, what is that feeling still to this day, January 2nd, 2024?
Thanks to my teammates.
Fantastic.
That I got to be a part of it.
Fantastic. David, that was beautiful what you just said. All right, here it is, because I know you know them all. I know you know them all, my friend.
What?
And then I got one thing to say to you then before we get off the air here.
Okay.
What is your all-time favorite Fred Shero quote of all time?
If you do not want to be criticized, say nothing, do nothing, and be nothing.
I just got goosebumps because I thought that was the one, and you are correct. But here's how I'm going to leave it tonight, because I know your time is valuable, and I truly appreciated this night, and this was just great. And I can't wait for that book again to come out by next October. The book is
it won't be until not this coming October. It'll be September of 2025.
September of 2025. It's going to be called Hammered by Life, and that's the book you want to read, and you'll find out everything about Dave Schultz the way you really want to hear it.
Yes.
Dave, I'm going to leave you with this.
Yes.
You know what my favorite Fred Shero line is? And I was, of course, a Chicago Blackhawk fan, but love Mr. Sherrill. But here's my favorite Fred Sherrill line, and especially in Game 6, 1973-74. He wrote on the chalkboard, "Win today, and we walk together forever." Dave Schultz, and I'm going to say it this way. I never used this word tonight, but this is how I'm going to call you before we leave tonight. Dave William Schultz, win today and we walk together forever. You've been doing it your whole life. Proud of you. Can't wait to get the book. And I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart tonight for this interview.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
This was fantastic. I don't know how to thank you. And we're going to get this out to our audience here in a couple of days. Dave, let's do a part 2 for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.